Welcome back to the Dr. Mo Show, where we talk about the freedom to shift. And today I have Dr. Asha. We'll go with the first name. And we are talking about how your life is different now from the traditional life in medicine that you started out with.
That's exactly right.
So tell me what you're classically trained in, what you did then, and what you do now.
So I'm an anesthesiologist, both certified. I'd been in full-time W-2 practice for the last 20 years. And that's where I started. And now I have made the shift, pivoted about a year and a half ago to join the locums lifestyle and to start trying that out.
How has that gone for you?
There's been a lot of challenges, ups and downs, but I do enjoy it. And I do enjoy the challenge. And it's been a journey so far. And I cannot believe it's been only a year and a half.
Does it feel, 20 years, did you work for the same practice for 20 years?
No, it was the same employer for the last 10, 11 years, but couple different hospitals, but pretty much in the same part of the country for the last 15 plus years.
And what made you change? What made you decide to go locums?
So over the last few years, I've been really delving deep into myself, what it means to be more me, and trying to figure out where I want to be 5 years from now and 10 years from now. And part of that self-discovery process was figuring out what I like to do and what I did not like to do. And although I loved where I was in a leadership role. I had the title, I had the relationships, I had the place I loved to work, which was 10 minutes from home. People I loved to work with who would greet me with a smile when I came in. And yet, when I wanted to expand my horizons and figure out where I wanted to be 10 years, even 5 years from now, I figured out I did not want to be tied down to a place and a job. I wanted a little bit more flexibility of time. And what really started that off was the realization that my living parent is aging and there is not that much time that I might have left with her when she's still active, and I would love to spend more time with her. And my traditional job at the time and even now would not give me that flexibility of taking more time off without a huge cut in pay. And so that was what prompted the exploration to something else, something not more non-traditional, which would allow me to take a little bit more time off.
You are not alone there. That's actually the second time I've had this conversation today with a friend she went to visit her parents and she says, they're not doing well. And we are given one precious life. It is very short. And we know this, as physicians, we all see this. But when it becomes your family, your life, I wonder why. I know why. It frustrates me. I mean, I was in the same department for 13 years. I loved it. Same thing. I was less than 10 minutes from home, and it makes me sad. I'm not going to wonder why. It makes me sad that our current medical system cannot accommodate.
Yes, you're so right. I mean, I had this exact conversation this past weekend when I was at our state conference and I ran into some of my old colleagues, and the question was why? And that was the whole thing. I mean, I said, you guys need to have more flexibility and offer more flexibility in your schedule. Otherwise, you would just lose people, and people who have institutional memory, who are successful, who know what the needs are. You cannot retain them because you don't want to be flexible.
And I don't think that institutional memory, I love that term because when I left the main emergency department, that was 13 years of cell phone numbers, relationships,
Yes.
colleagues I got to see. You call for like you know the people. And they're like, "Well, it doesn't matter. I can just bring in a new grad."
Yes, very short-sighted.
And admittedly, again, my needs didn't fit, my way of practicing didn't fit. Again, real life comes in. And the thing when I went part-time, well, the whole thing was much like anesthesia, your patients don't know how many days you worked that week. They don't
Mhm.
even know where you live. They
Yes,
know that they need help and you can help them.
exactly.
And from a somewhat archaic organizational standpoint, I was actually told, it's just easier if you work full time. Well,
Mhm.
it is easier for you if I work full time. Admittedly, it's more malpractice policies, but I mean, at that point in a hospital system that large, we know that it's not a double, right? It's not an incremental. It's an incremental increase. What would you say if I said, well, if I was your boss and I
Mhm.
said, great, let's find one or two other employees to split your job and let's do that,
100%. I would have stayed.
right?
I would have stayed.
And why isn't that a possibility? It's so frustrating. Like, it's just, I don't understand.
I think, at least for my particular situation, it is that I live in a very desirable part of the country, and up until now, they haven't had trouble keeping the spots filled. Although they're also seeing changes in that, and people don't want to continue to work the kind of schedules that we did and we do. Yet it's easier to bring in someone who is willing to work full time and overtime and not consider the flexibility.
And think that flexibility, and I think the flexibility is part of the autonomy piece.
Yes.
The things that this in physician leadership, that things that keep your employees happy, things that keep physicians happy are, autonomy. Think anyone, any high level profession, we need to have autonomy. We do need to have that flexibility. We need to understand that we can be there for families or ourselves. I was talking to a physician earlier today, and we were talking about how it's okay to go to the bathroom.
I wonder when and where we started with this idea. I know we've been kind of culturally in the medical training, in almost indoctrinated into this kind of mindset that we cannot, and it's hard to break out of it.
It is. It is. I talked to Michael Hirsch, who's a gastroenterologist and physician coach. One of the things that he implemented in his practice, in his GI practice, was a 30-minute break in the day. And that sounds like, to the outside world, you're thinking, so what?
It should be.
Like, what's the big deal? But when there's 30 people in the waiting room and you say, I have to go to the bathroom, let me know if someone codes. Knock on the door if somebody codes. And I didn't stay in there. I wasn't reading the newspaper. And I'm not sure. I mean, I joke and say it was Sir William Osler to say, well, you're the one who coined the residency thing, because that, we lived in the hospital and that's how I guess we stayed.
Mhm.
And now on the flip side, our own profession will say, well, this is the way we did it. And so you
Yes.
have to do it the same way.
Yes.
I have colleagues, even with me going part-time, even colleagues in different professions like the veterinary profession, it's hard for them to say, well, the graduates today don't want to work as hard. I think they're being a bit smarter today. They're saying, no, my family matters. My health actually matters. I mean, I've seen multiple social media posts lately that have talked about where medicine is the only profession where you sacrifice your health for your clients.
Very true.
And it's like, and it's not even okay. It's revered. It's celebrated. I haven't slept in 3 days. Okay, great. Cut me open. Not so much. I I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Tell me your thoughts on all of that. Tell me your thoughts on where we're going, where, like you said, even you're in a desirable part of the country and now they're having trouble. Tell me more about that.
Now they're having trouble. But these are conversations I've had. So, being in leadership for the last 10, 12 years, these are conversations I've had with my employer, within the larger scheme of anesthesia, because I am also involved in the National Society in several leadership positions. In fact, I'm the chair of the Women's Committee within the national organization. And we've had these conversations where I would have someone stand up and say, but that's how we did it and that's how we need to do it. And I would say, why? Why do we need to do it this way? It doesn't mean that the newer generation coming up doesn't know that, doesn't know hard work. But you're right, the priorities are different. And if we want to keep the best and brightest, not just within our, hospitals and places of work, but within our profession, our specialty, well, we need to be flexible. We need to offer them the life that they want to be and not really get upset at them for asking. It doesn't matter if we did it.
I like that, not getting upset at them for asking. And these are things we don't talk about. We never talked about in medicine. I mean, as a 51-year-old physician, we didn't talk about when is a good time for me to have a baby. It's never a good time. Let's be honest. Number one, you're never prepared as a parent.
Right. Yes,
But, you're frowned upon. And it's a tough topic.
it
Or
is.
God forbid, I have an ailing parent. I need to take some time.
And the first question is, how are we going to fill the schedule? Or who's going to pay for the vacation? That's the thing. We figure it out. I did do part of my residency in the UK.
Mm.
which is a completely different system. And my first child was born there. So I had 6 months of maternity leave, paid maternity leave with the nursing staff coming to the house for the first week every day to check on me. And then
That sounds like a fantasy to me.
yes. And then I had my second child here in the middle of my residency. Both were in the middle of residency. It's so completely different. And the question is, why can our system not function when everywhere else in the world, the developed nations, it can work?
That's a heck of a question. I mean, I can't imagine. I had maternity leave that they pretty much said you have a job when you come back.
Yeah.
And and that's actually not necessarily guaranteed everywhere. I mean, that was a gift. I don't know. I don't know the answer other than this is just the way it's always been done.
And then that's why we need to change. That's why we need these conversations and we need people to bring these ideas to the forefront and not necessarily the younger generation because they are not yet in the leadership positions. So it falls upon us to do it.
What about the argument that if they don't work as many hours, they don't get as good at their job?
Well, that's a whole different conversation in the residency scheme, correct? Now, I don't know. Yes, I trained at the time and we didn't have the hours necessarily of, restrictions on hours. So yes, there were weeks of 80, 90 hours and how much of the learning happened then is questionable. Well, so maybe it needs a little bit more time. Maybe it needs 5 years instead of 4. So the experience will come, but I think that's a hard conversation.
Yes.
Training part, that's a hard conversation on what is enough and what is not.
I think that differs per person too.
Yes, yes. But after residency, it's a whole different thing. Then you can choose your lifestyle, and that's what they're doing. And that's why we have such shortages.
Yes, absolutely. No longer are we willing to sacrifice decades, years of fertility, complete fertility for some. And I mean, that breaks my heart because I know people who have wanted to have children and can't because of, you know, whether it's age or stress or years or health or all the above. And I mean, yeah, they're tough conversations. They really are. But I still that's part of my goal with what I do is I celebrate a shift, especially the ones that keep people in medicine.
Yes.
Because we can't all leave to go do passive income with real estate.
Exactly. Who's going to take care of us? And we've got to take care of people. So who's going to so that's why I think the system needs to change. And I think that it has to come from inside. And we need the leadership within our medical profession to make those changes happen.
I think that that's a wonderful perspective. It's funny, it's the opposite of mine, which I welcome because I've talked to a couple people recently, and you're one of them that are all about lobbying, love the leadership position. I'm like, please go, please do it because that's not my love. So I'm like, please, we need you to do this part because that's not my draw. And I will cheer you on.
It's kind of like I was doing this weekend. So part of my leadership positions with the Florida Society is advocacy for our patients. Patients come first. So who makes the decisions that affect us? It's not just our hospitals. It's all in DC and your local state hospital, your local state legislators who make those decisions. So yes, and then the leadership aspect, if all of us who are experienced leave medicine, and who's going to make those changes?
Yeah. And like you said, who's gonna be on the ground? I mean, we can't all leave.
We can't all leave.
I mean, it's yeah. And it's a kind of a do you still work full-time locums or have you
Full-time locums.
full-time? That's amazing. So you've stayed on the ground, but they provide. So tell me about the difference in flexibility between the consistent work environment, the W-2 work environment that you had versus the locums. Tell me the difference.
So the flexibility comes within this part of my life by giving the locums agencies or the facilities I work with the schedule that I want to work. So I would tell them I'm going to work these weeks, I'm going to work these number of hours these weeks, and that's all I'm going to do. I'm not going to do nights, I'm not going to do weekends. And so that part is where the flexibility in the scheduling comes. So I know I can schedule time for the trips that I want to make with my mom or with my adult kids. So that's where that flexibility comes in. The difference in the part of the sacrifice is the uncertainty. So it is the uncertainty of the 30-day notice or 60-day notice, which can exist even in the W-2 space, but is a little different as a locums because by the nature of it, we are temporary workers. So that uncertainty is there. And the other part of it is also not sleeping in your own bed, because if I want to make the same kind of income that I did as a full-time W-2 employee, then I have to go where the work is. So that does mean spending time in a hotel like I'm doing now and not sleeping in my bed. So that's a sacrifice that comes with it.
How is that? I know most people that I speak with that do locums will not work full time
Mhm.
and decrease to kind of meet that income. And the travel is quite a bit of a burden on some people that I feel. Do you feel that this is a long-term solution for your flexibility, or kind of how has it felt over the past year and a half?
So I thought when I went in that I would give it 2 years, figure out what it looked like, and then see where I wanted it to be, whether I wanted to go back home and pick up something there. I actually quite like it because, yes, I work full time in terms of the number of weeks or hours in the sense, but I have enough breaks in between for my all the stuff that I want to do, my leadership stuff, my coaching, all of that now, albeit because it's not paid as such, that time that I take off, then I have a little bit more of time that I do work. So that's why I said full time, but comparatively, I have more weeks off.
Okay. So it's still super beneficial, it sounds like. Well, of course it is, because if not, you would have quit way longer than before.
That's right.
And that's the beauty of it, right? So if you made this decision and you wanted to make a different decision, so often as physicians, we feel that we're locked into whatever we do forever. At least
Yes.
that's the way I felt. And not even by obligation, by desire. You know, I loved where I worked. I loved it. I guess it's a sense of complacency as well.
Comfort zone, right? We
Yes.
like to be in our comfort zone. And for better or worse, through the last 20 years of my career, I have had to have changes sort of almost every 5 years, some by choice, some not by my choice. And so that has kind of made me a little bit more flexible. So this last pivot didn't seem as scary as it could have been.
So if you were talking to a physician, say 3 years out, and they're already starting to feel that strain, 3 to 5 years out is really kind of my sweet spot where I'd love to grab every doctor out there. Because, you know, the best time to grow is when you don't have to. When you're
Yes.
still pretty happy, you're still kind of enamored, there's still a little bit of a honeymoon, but you're like, oh, I'm getting kind of tired. I'm not sure I can do this for the next 20 years. What would you say if somebody came to you and said, so I'm kind of feeling something. I'm not
Mhm.
sure what.
Yeah. I would say start exploring. What is it that you want to achieve? Where do you see yourself? What are some other avenues that could be of interest to you? And part of it, I think, is within those first few years. In the first, I think the first 3 to 5 years, we are still finding our feet, becoming clinically better. And even in anesthesia, I would not encourage anyone to go start doing locums within 5 years because I think it does take that first 5 years to really hone your skills and become confident in yourself. But that is also the period of time most of us are starting families and not seeing things outside of our clinical role. So I think that is the time to start exploring what else is out there, whether you want to go into leadership or different opportunities, whether it's you locally in your hospital or state or county, something that's of interest to you that you can bring some variety to your life. So it's not just your clinical life and home. Because what I found is when you are doing other things that you love outside of your full-time job, it's much easier to stay in a job because you have the other interests. And it's not, and I don't mean to say just family and just work, because those are never just, but it does tend to be that for the first few years. So I would tell people look for other things, other interests. It could be in medicine, it could be outside of medicine, but develop those interests and that will keep you in medicine a lot longer.
I love that because I didn't know. I think looking back when dinosaurs roamed the earth, I did not know that the first few years were going to be excruciatingly hard.
Mhm.
And you're finding your feet. It's more like you're finding your feet, but it's quicksand.
Yes.
And and you're just trying to find a stable place to stand. And I'm very grateful my career was I worked 15 years full time, since then have deviated a bit. And well, I did take 3 months off for maternity leave. I don't know if I count that.
Good
Um,
for you.
yeah, I actually took, and it was so scary going back, right? Because I was like, I haven't worked, I forgot everything. And within the first day, you're like, oh no, I remember this now. We're good. And I wish I would have had a mentor to come to that I could text at 2 in the morning and say, because I worked nights for 15 years. I love nights. It's funny. It is what it is. I like nights. I like weekends. I don't like a 9 to 5. Now I work a 9 to 5, sort of, but it's on my own terms and it's a little different. But I wish I would have had a mentor, and I tried to implement this in our hospital system a couple of times where when we get a new doctor in, they get a buddy. They get a
Yeah.
buddy. We get a buddy. You get assigned to a buddy. And I'm not talking hang out at a wine dinner. I'm talking one that you can text, one that you can call, a safe space. You meet once a month. And it became another obligation. So it never really flew on a larger scale, but because that's what I wished I would have had.
That's such a great idea. That is, and I don't know why it's hard to make it work because if there are, I mean, we talk about mentorship, we talk about sponsorship, and all it needs sometimes is someone to, as you said, just text or pick up the phone and call when you're feeling down, and that would keep you going for a lot longer. And it
Absolutely.
might be just a person to vent to, but that's necessary.
Like, is this normal? Because this is what I'm feeling. Is this normal? Yep, totally normal. And that's really it because, in residency, you have the camaraderie of your residency class. In
Mhm.
medical school, same thing. You've got the camaraderie and you get out into the attending world. And yes, you've got your group. And we had a nice cohesive group for a very long time. But you're still, especially when you're at the head of the bed,
Yes.
you're alone.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of the reason. So what I did was I got really good at gathering around me groups of people. So at each step, I started reaching out because my first leadership role, it was lonely. It was lonely in a small community hospital with my peers who actually now I was the boss of. And so I had no one to ask, is this normal? Is this the way it's supposed to be? So I started gathering community and from the national organization, local organizations outside of the hospital. Now, if we could have created something like that in the hospital, that would have been great. But that's what we all need, right? We need a community of support.
I believe that. I will stand by that 100%. It's funny because I was doing one-on-one coaching for physicians, and I actually decided to make the main program a community program,
Mhm.
group coaching and community, because I said, wait a minute, we want to be one-on-one. We want to fail in private. We don't
Yes.
want to be falling on our face in front of or asking questions even sometimes. I always throughout my career, I had no problem saying, why can't I think about can you tell me the answer to this? Because
Mhm.
I can't think right now or whatever. And I feel like community is somewhat frowned upon because we aren't seen as independent or, as knowledgeable. We know that doctors have a hard time. We're alone.
It's interesting you say that because when I started, because I was doing one-on-one individual coaching and I wanted to do a group program and I talked to my clients, one-on-one clients, and to each of them, they were hesitant and the only reason they said yes was with the understanding that we talked multiple times about the confidentiality piece. And within 3 sessions, it was the best thing ever because they realized that the experiences they thought they had was very restricted to them was the same that everyone else had in the group.
When
So
you have that
yeah,
sigh of, oh, it's not just me.
not just me. Yes.
Oh, okay. All right, let's keep going. Let's
Yeah.
all get better. And that's just it. I mean, a rising tide lifts all boats. And the vast majority of the one-on-one clients that I was working with did not want to go to group.
Yes. Until the experience group.
And then and I do this with my patient, I have a remote lifestyle medicine practice, and we do happy hour on Wednesdays. That's what we call it now. It's gone through different name iterations throughout the last 2 years, but we settled on happy hour and we love it. I mean, it's a core group. It's usually a core group of about 20. And we've got people when they first start with the practice because it's lifestyle medicine. And I believe every medical interaction should come with education and coaching. That's just something I stand by. And so we have some people that have been coming every Wednesday for 2 years. Some, when they first start, we come for a couple, or we're having some trouble, and then you come back in, and they know it's not a HIPAA compliant space. It's like hanging out in the waiting room at your doctor's office. But I'll tell you, you sit in that waiting room at the doctor's office, and you're going to hear all kinds of medical information.
Right.
that nobody
Yes.
cares about. I mean, look at social media. Patients are more than willing to air their dirty laundry on social media. And I'm like, no, this is a safe space. I always tell people it's not a HIPAA compliant space, but it's a very safe space. And the same for doctors is my thing is I want to provide a safe space for people to be. I
Yeah.
never want people to feel alone. I felt alone multiple times in my life, and it's a crappy feeling.
Yes. Community, right? We all need that.
Sometimes I feel like, what we kind of talked about at the beginning, that sometimes I think administration forgets that we're just all people, even the administration, and then I have a doc that I absolutely love, and I saw recently at a function at the hospital. I went back to see, and he's a fairly gruff physician. Just
Mhm.
he always said, I'm not a hugger. I, and I would always walk in and give him a hug just because. And he's like, I'm not a hugger. I'm like, yep, I know. You get two. And I just saw him a couple weeks ago and he hugged me twice. And
Mhm.
I miss working with him. And that's the part that I miss. That's
Yeah.
the camaraderie. I miss that part. And so we have to develop it, I think, in other spaces and grow. People need safe spaces to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that you found it outside of medicine. Now, how beautiful would it be if you could create that one inside of medicine?
That is my sort of that's my long-term vision. I joke, I just want to save medicine from the ground up. I don't have, small goals, small goals.
Yeah. Someone has to start.
Exactly, exactly. And I think if more people show up at work happy, that's going to make a huge difference.
Yes.
I mean, that's when you show up at work with something to give, when you've replenished, I think it's a game changer.
I think that's where the self-exploration comes in, right? I mean, if you're miserable all the time, then you need the change. What is going to keep you happy and make you happy?
And often that I find that is subtraction. It's not adding something else. It's not, I have a history in endurance sports. It's not signing up for another race. It might be not doing races for 2 years to watch that shell crack and see, oh, when you slow down, what does that actually look like? And that it is, it's been a lot of subtraction for me. And yes, I work. My husband jokes. He's like, you're the only person I know that traded a 40-hour week for an 80-hour week and is 10 times as happy. And I said, I don't work 80 hours a week. I just work weird hours because I work when I feel like it. So
It's all a matter of perspective.
it is. It is. And actually my son actually asked me earlier today. He said, which is so funny. It soothes my mother's soul that he said, would you rather work, because I ended up having a long work day at home today. Would you rather work 12 hours at home or 6 in the hospital? And I said, I never worked 6 in the hospital. I don't know what you were seeing. But that's what he saw because
Mhm.
he didn't see me working. So I thought, oh, that's an interesting perspective. Okay, looks like I need to draw some little bit thicker lines at home so we know when we're working versus not working. So it's been fun navigating. It's fun getting called out from time to time. So, and I think it's different for everyone. I
Yes.
mean, I never expected to leave emergency medicine ever. I didn't, and then the more that, and I may go back. I mean, shoot, the job offers we get texted to us every week,
Absolutely. Every day.
every day. And I'm actually getting a second book out, so I'm taking a little bit and not working clinically at all. But I think about that. I mean, I literally planned on working 4 to 6 shifts a month or in that ER. But now I see, when we save a life, it's a life. If I can save the lives of 1,000 doctors and keep them on the ground, that's a lot of lives saved.
That's a lot of life saved.
And that's where the decision comes in of where can I do the most good? But it's not traditional and it's scary and it's way outside the comfort zone.
May not be traditional. That's right.
And and like I said, I think it's different for everyone. I mean, your leadership difference is going to change the world.
That's the goal.
And that's why we're in this row in this boat, right? We're in this
That's right.
we got in the lifeboat. We got off of the ship headed for the iceberg. We're in a lifeboat. We're all just rowing.
Rowing hard.
Real hard, real hard. So I want to be respectful of your time and the listener's time for sure. When people think to themselves, "Ooh, I'd like to do what she does. How did she do that? How did she think about that? Can she help? How do people get in touch with you?"
My email, my LinkedIn. I do have a website, although that's getting a little revamped, but LinkedIn is the best place, or Facebook is the best place to connect.
And we'll have that information in the show notes as well, so that they can just click through. And I am so glad that I got to speak with you today. It was so refreshing. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. And I loved hearing about your journey too.
Yes, it's just this it's a fun journey, and it's good to have fun in medicine again.
Absolutely. That's what keeps us in or happy where we are.
Absolutely. And to the listeners, thank you so much for your time and attention, and we will see you next time.